when you rip your heart out and lay it on the road and put it at risk for a car driving over it. Like, I think that's the way most of us view it, but it doesn't have to be like that. Hey y'all, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Gabby if you are new here, and today I really wanted to talk about and get into being vulnerable in your relationships, whether that be with someone that you're with, friends or family or whomever. So it may not come to much surprise that I have not been what you would consider a vulnerable person. I kind of had a cast over myself to try to present myself in a certain way. People who try to look a certain way or present themselves a certain way at all times most likely are not vulnerable, because they're hiding what really goes on and how they really feel to keep up a certain look. I've always been in touch with my more sensitive side though, because naturally I am a sensitive person. Even when I was young and I didn't know how to communicate my feelings, it was mostly with my friends. I would always write a letter. I was quick to pass a letter throughout the school or across class to one of my friends to get my message across of how I feel. Elementary school, middle school, up until I got a phone. So I was connected enough with people to know that I wanted them to know how I really feel, but there's still a difference in telling people how you feel and actually being vulnerable. And right now I'm thinking about friendships. You know, you can talk to your friends and tell them how you feel about something between y'all or outside of y'all friendship or just in your life in general, but it's another step, another level when you open yourself to be vulnerable. And that's so scary, because you're basically, I like the way Brene Brown put it in her book The Gifts of Imperfection, which I'm not done reading yet, but she said something along the lines of, when you put yourself in a vulnerable place, it's like you're running outside naked, because that's how you feel. When you get vulnerable, it feels like you are exposing yourself in every type of way to the point where you might as well be outside naked. On the other side of that fear, there's so much beauty though, because you're able to really connect with people in a much deeper way. I think the problem that a lot of us run into with this though is that we get vulnerable with the wrong people, or we get vulnerable at the wrong time. Like, you'll see in movies and stuff like that, when in a relationship, when the relationship is going left or there's divorce or something like that, the woman will open up and pour her heart and be vulnerable in the most authentic, tender way, and it doesn't do anything to help her, because at that point that man will just take that information and continue to emotionally harm her. Or it's already past the point where that's going to make a difference, because the man has already made up his mind. So now that woman is feeling like she just exposed herself for nothing, and then that creates a situation where she doesn't ever want to be vulnerable again, which really only just hurts her in the future, because in order to take that next step with somebody, you really have to be able to get to that point where you can be vulnerable. So I noticed that as far as with friendships, especially when you're making friends with somebody new, you know, the conversation is that baseline, surface level type of stuff that you're talking about. And after a while, when one of y'all or both of y'all want to go deeper into the friendship, eventually somebody is going to end up saying something that they probably normally wouldn't have said to you before, or something new, or they just open this new realm of information to you that gives you the ticket to be like, here we go, and then y'all are going along with it. And if it's a good, healthy bond and friendship, you will continue to grow. But if it's not, then that person may end up judging you, using that information against you or something like that. That's kind of hard to decipher, but many times I think most people give us red flags. I think they give us red flags and we either ignore them or we just bypass them because we think it'll be okay or it'll blow over, and then we find out in the end that that's not the case. But so many of these situations that we come into can be avoided. Now there are some situations where you deal with, you know, narcissist people or somebody who's really trying to play you or con you and really get you sliding into this world of really falseness, nothingness, and then they pull the rug from up under your feet. That's a different story. But there's so much greatness behind being vulnerable, and so many of us just haven't had the chance to really experience what that's like. Men traditionally are brought up not to cry, not to express their feelings, or even if they're not taught those things, like women, they're just not taught anything about emotions at all or what to do. And that was the case for me. Like me growing up, I wasn't taught anything about emotions, but I was pretty sensitive, so it didn't really take much to make me cry. But then when I did cry, I was just told to hush or be quiet or stop being dramatic. That already shaped and skewed my experience just from the very beginning. It just didn't feel safe for me to tell people how I felt or allow somebody to see when I was hurt, because it just made me feel really weak. Like I remember after my brother had passed away, like there were so many times where I just couldn't help it and I would just cry. Like anytime something stressful or bad happened in my life, in some way, shape, or form, I would connect it to him and I would just be bawling, crying. But after about 2 years of that, like I started just feeling bad for crying, because I'm like, I just feel super weak. Like it's not doing anything for me, it's not helping me. I just really wasn't giving myself grace in an area that I needed it so much. We're not taught what to do with our emotions in the first place, so when we get into adulthood and things get harder, most of our emotions feel wrong. We think they're wrong, or somebody else makes us feel like they're wrong, or they actually are wrong because we're mismanaging ourselves. But getting to a point where you can embrace your emotions and learn how to properly share them and feel them and move through them, I think will make it a lot easier to be more vulnerable with ourselves and with other people, in addition to, you know, having that discernment and understanding what type of people we are dealing with and expressing ourselves with. I'm a private person. That's kind of hard to say considering some of the stuff I talk about up here, but I am pretty much a private person, so it takes me a while to really start opening up anyway. But once I get to a point where I'm ready to, it's a lot easier. I'd say for sure though, it's a lot harder for me to open up with men in my relationships. But I learned that, I don't know about men, but I think for women it's hard to be vulnerable in a relationship, because you just never know how you're going to be treated, how that information is going to come back on you, or what's going to happen. And not only that, so many of us operate out of our masculinity. Operating more in my feminine has been a little, like, it's definitely been a challenge for me. Having a go hard, hustle hard, independent mentality as a tomboy, there were just so many things about me that were masculine. When I think of a feminine woman, I think of a woman who is vulnerable, but who is vulnerable at the right times. A strong woman who won't allow somebody to pull on her heartstrings and play around with her any way that they want to. That's the type of woman that I aspire to be. And it takes knowledge and confidence and strength to be that sort of woman. When you're that type of woman who won't get soft in that way, you can express your feelings, like I was saying in the beginning, but you don't express them in a soft way. It's more like in a direct way or in a combative type of way, which is not usually very receiving. It's so scary, but it's so amazing to be able to tap into when you trust yourself and when you feel good about where you're at in your life and what you're about to share with that person or those people. You just know that nobody can use whatever you're saying against you. There's nothing wrong with you telling who you are, what you like, what you don't like, something that you've been through, or anything like that, when you know it's coming from a good place within you, because you have that level of self-love and confidence to even do that in the first place. And secondly, you're not laying your heart in the road. You know what I'm saying? It's you're opening up your heart and allowing something to come out. That's being vulnerable from a healthy space. When you're doing it with control over what you're saying and what you're feeling, but still allowing it to flow. But from a healthy space, it's like when you rip your heart out and lay it on the road and put it at risk for a car driving over it. Like I think that's the way most of us view it, but it doesn't have to be like that. And it feels so good when you get to that healthy space. You just feel so alive and so reassured in who you are. And honestly, I think people appreciate somebody who can be vulnerable and who can be real, because is real. In the days that we're living in, so many things are confusing and blurred and controversial and just everything in between. So to come across someone who is willing to be boldly vulnerable with you, even if it's something that they can't relate to, it just feels like home. I guess it just feels really warm, and it's really nice to know that you're talking to and you're relating to somebody who has a human side that they're not afraid to share. The human experience is different for everyone, and we all have different stories, and all of our stories are interesting. I really used to think that I had a boring life. Not in the current time though. When I would think about my past, like just think about my life, just in general, I'd be like, man, ain't really much happening in my life. I don't really have much that's going on. I mean, I just try to do the best I can and, you know, strive to do better and be better and just live happy with the things that I want to do and I want to achieve. And yeah. But when I sat down and really took a look at my life and thought about some of the things that I went through, I'm like, man, my life could be a movie. My life could literally be a movie. I don't think we sit down enough and really think about our life from a neutral perspective. When we think about ourselves and we think about our lives, I think the first thing naturally we do, because that's just what the human mind does, is think about bad stuff that happened to us. But there's so many good things too. There's so many funny times, so many funny things that happen. So when I hear people say that, they think they're boring or they don't have much going on. Even though from the outside looking in, seeing how they are and how they live their life, that might seem true. But I think everybody has something that's worth sharing and that would move somebody else. But it's just that the things that we've experienced just seem so normal for us that it's just not that big of a deal. I was watching this video one day where this girl was just kind of just talking about her life, and I thought to myself as she was telling her story, this is probably something that she's done thought about thousands of times over, or told to or talked to with friends or family or whoever. But it was just so fascinating to me to hear somebody just talk about their life trying to become a model, as somebody who's not famous and who's not already from money and just already up there, but somebody who is at ground level just trying to climb up. I just thought that was really cool, and it just made me think about other people. Like, I wonder how many other people have really cool things to talk about that are just normal to them because it was their life, but that is something really interesting to somebody else. Like, if you think about somebody who like, it was this one picture, oh my gosh, I gotta find it. Wesley showed it to me. It was Hillary Clinton, and she was in this apartment, and it looked like just an average apartment, and the kitchen was really small. Her face was looking like, this is how y'all be living? Nobody would ever really know what that's like or have a picture painted in their head if people weren't getting vulnerable and sharing their story. We just have to have discernment and be able to pinpoint when is the best time to talk about these things. These stories and these experiences connect us. Being validated, it's okay. We want to be validated. We want to be connected. Like, we want to feel that wholesomeness and knowing that we are not alone. We just can't overindulge and feel like we need validation to continue on, because that's when we hurt ourselves and that's when we fail. I opened up myself on this channel, and even though I was at a place already and still am where I felt peace about what occurred, I still was so nervous once I turned my camera on. Not like a scared nervous, but like, oh my god. But to be able to talk about something like that is just freedom. I remember just for so many years I would pray and ask God for freedom. Freedom, God make me free, God make me free. I would affirm in my times of depression, I am free, I am free, I am free. I just felt so bogged down in my life, and I didn't realize that the experiences that I've endured in my life that I kept bottled up were part of what was keeping me in bondage. Feeling like I had to keep presenting myself as a certain way to paint this picture was keeping me in bondage. I heard this pastor say, he was talking about what he used to be like when he was young. He started having sex at a really young age, and even when he started walking into his calling of being a pastor, he was still out there in the street laying up with these women and all this and all that. And he had got married young, and he was stepping out on his wife, and he was still pastoring. Once he really started to fall before the Lord and change his heart and change his ways, he started preaching on the stuff that he had done and where he had come from and what God brought him out of. That had to be so hard. That took so much courage for him to do that. That took so much strength and vulnerability for him to do that. Knowing how many people would look down on him or judge him, having that sort of position, especially in the church, and to be talking about all this stuff that you did. But he was so sure of himself, and that's what he said. He was so sure of himself that he didn't care. He said, once I fell before the Lord and once I repented and changed my life around and I became free, ain't nobody had nothing on me. It was nothing anybody could say about me that would make me feel bad. Nobody could string me along, because I already knew who I was and where I come from and who I am today. And I felt so much power when he said that, because to me, that felt like freedom. That felt like the freedom that I had been praying for, that I had been looking for. When I heard him say that, that's how I knew I need to get these things up off me. I need to get to a place where I can say something that happened to me, or somebody could walk up to me talking about something that happened to me, and I would feel no way about it. Because you don't have anything on me. You don't have anything over my life. You can't control me. You can't control my feelings. Only I can do that. You can't take something that you know about me and dangle it in my face, because I already know. That's where I wanted to get. That's where I wanted to be. I knew there was so much more life, so much more freedom, and that's just what it makes me feel like. I could just take a deep breath in and out, knowing that nobody can control me and nobody has my life. And that comes from vulnerability. If you want to be free, start taking the steps to heal inside and move towards being vulnerable. You don't have to tell everybody everything. You don't have to tell everybody the fine details. I used to think that I had to do that, but I don't have to tell everybody the fine details, because the main part of the story, the meat and potatoes, is really what matters. Not what fork and what spoon I use and what type of cup I drink out of. Just the meal, you know? People don't need all that, and there are some things that you can keep to yourself to keep sacred. So you don't have to tell everybody all your stuff, all your business. But when you can get to a point where you're not ashamed about where you come from, about what you've done, or feel any type of way about somebody talking about something about you of your past, you're free. We can want all the money and all the things in life that we want, and we can actually attain them, but money literally cannot buy freedom. That's so cliche, but it's so true. It cannot. When the Bible said the truth shall set you free, that wasn't a lie. And you know that once you actually really experience it and start walking in your own path, strong on your own 2 feet, vulnerability can and will do that for you. And when you have that self-love and that confidence, nobody will ever have anything on you. Period. That's it for today's video, y'all. I really hope you enjoyed it. I love y'all so much, and until the next time, and peace and love, I'm out. Don't forget to subscribe.